This all-new SUV here is supposed to be Volvo's next big hit, supposed to fight against the BMW iX3 and the Mercedes GLC EQ. And also, can existing Volvo XC60 customers be convinced to switch to a Volvo, the first ever EX60? We're going to find out everything about this one here in exterior, interior and technology, both the normal version and also the cross-country version coming up. Everything you need to know. This will be super exciting with Thomas on Autogefuehl in 4K, full screen, full length. Let's go with the front closed all the way for better aerodynamics. 0.26 is the CD value, then the Thor's hammer LED signature in the top. Matrix LED is standard and optional the pixel LED, like a more elaborated HD matrix here, signalizing by these additional 2 horizontal signatures here. So the lower part is the main headlamp unit, the upper part then for the daytime running light. This one here is Forest Lake, a greenish color. There will be different colors available. And of course, as I said, also the cross-country version with the more black cladding. This one here is the bright scheme. Has a bright accentuation in the lower part, otherwise it's black. And there will be also here in the side, this is in the bright scheme where it's black than in the black scheme. The length here is at 4 meters 80 or 189 inches. So the very same segment like the iX3 and the GLC EQ, and also similar to the XC60, only that this one here has a 10 centimeters or 4-inch longer wheelbase. Soon going to check out how they translate into the interior. Wheels 20 to 22 inch. These are the biggest ones in 22 inch. And you can see here that the normal version has no like cladded wheel arches or something like that. This will be different on the cross-country version soon to come. Then also interesting that we have these frameless side mirrors. They're good for aerodynamics, Volvo says, and they also look actually quite cool. And at the same time, they also enlarge the area where you can actually see. These will be very interesting door handles. So you have no real door handles at all. They're also not physical in a way. There's like a pad behind it and you press it and then the door is opening like this. You can argue about these. Door handles are always a thing these days. And also suspension, you get bass frequency selective dampers. Optional then adaptive suspension for the all-wheel drive models. They are then included in the all-wheel drive models, and air suspension for the cross-country model, soon to come then from the different studios. So 3 different suspensions overall. But as I said, all with the base one with frequency selective damping. So the base with passive adaptive dampening, the mid one already with active dampers, and then more to the air suspension very soon. New rear design, you can see it right here. They took the XC60 inspiration with the tail lamps, but then they made it a little bit more modern, a little bit more segmented. So they want to have something new, but also something from the past. And you can see that it's more narrow here and wider than in the lower part. Big Volvo lettering, and you can see this one here is like going into the technical details, EX60, and then P12 AWD Ultra. Ultra is the top trim level. This one already includes the Bose & Wilkins sound system and some other features. Soon more to that in the interior, so it's more about than the interior features, larger wheels. The P12, this is about the drivetrain. This is the top spec. 3.9 seconds in the acceleration figure, 1 electric motor in the rear, 1 electric motor in the front. And then there is like a mid all-wheel drive spec, and then there's also an entry-level rear-wheel drive version at 5.9 seconds in the acceleration figure. And let's check out if it has a frunk or not. Interestingly, to open like the engine hood or a frunk hood at the Volvo, here the arrow at the Volvo logo always points in the direction where you can actually open it. And this is the classic yellow thing you also have with combustion engines. Yeah, this is a very funny one, definitely. But so you can put more than just a charging cable. This yellow line, by the way, is the maximum line up to where you can actually put things in there. So yeah, this is a very well usable frunk. Now to the batteries, because this one is here all electric, and that's why it's also the question, can it convince combustion engine or plug-in hybrid Volvo XC60 customers to go then to the electric version of this one here? And I can tell you, as for the battery specs and charging spec and so on, it can very well keep up with the BMW iX3 and the Mercedes GLC EQ. So yeah, maybe also the Audi Q6 e-tron. And this will be very interesting how this fight is playing out, and we will continue the coverage for you on that one, of course. So this one starts with the named rear-wheel drive version with the 5.9 seconds in the acceleration. Base battery, rear-wheel drive, 80 kilowatt hours net. We are only giving the net figures. Then there's a mid battery with 91 kilowatt hours. That one adds like 3,000 euros. If you then add another 6,000 euros on it, then you get the biggest battery at 112 kilowatt hours net. And this is really substantially large and even larger than with the core competitors. If you don't see this biggest battery version directly in the configurator when you watch this video at the world premiere, it comes a little bit later. And it also depends on the market, which versions they will offer to which market. So we'll have to see about that. And we have it here, this the 112 kilowatt hour battery with the overdrive P12, 3.9 seconds then in the acceleration figure. Charging, 320 kilowatts for the smallest battery, 370 kilowatt peak for the two bigger batteries. And it, there we go, it's manual, it's actually good as manual, and this is also good protected against the rain. 22 kilowatt AC, maybe later 11 kilowatt for entry-level versions to come later. And then here the DC charging, as I said, 320 or 370. And the 10 to 80% state of charge figure is then 19 minutes for the biggest battery and 18 minutes for the smaller batteries. So overall, when you look at the vehicle and you consider the facts and figures, it's actually already quite promising. So BMW, Mercedes and Audi, Volvo, here we come. That's very interesting. And of course, in driving, we'll also keep you updated on that. The interesting thing is, big news now, from 2027, these flush door handles will be forbidden in China again. And just to give you an update on the story again, door handles used to be manual. Then everyone went to flush door handles because the Chinese market demanded flush door handles. Modern technology, aerodynamics, although it doesn't make the biggest difference. Then there were some accidents with flush door handles. Now the Chinese markets are it's like now forbidden from 2027 to have flush door handles. Volvo says, however, that these do not count as flush door handles because they already stand out. They are not mechanical from the outside, though. This is maybe one thing I would think about. Interesting solution, but they say that it looks small, but it's like an iceberg in there. Listen to that. So it's like really large underneath. So they say that firefighters can also use a lot of force to it. So then interesting that from the inside it is also mechanical, because that way it's electric, but then you can pull it up and then it's mechanical. So this is very important. That's A, on the same position, and B, that should something fail, you could still have the manual unlock from the inside. That's the most important thing. Then beautiful bright design scheme. Dark ones are also available. Soft touch here on the top part. Soft touch here everywhere. Nice high-grade leatherette, Nordico they call it. And also here, this is not black plain plastic. I can touch that. I can really press my finger, my thumb in there. This is really nice. It's not a fabric in a way, not like a felt or something. But it's also like a leatherette, and this is really cool. The only hard pack is here, this outside cover, which is to me then fine. It's pretty cool. You get either the Bowers & Wilkins system, this is the optional one, or in the Ultra trim, 28 speakers, or the Bose system, which is standard, already 21 speakers, quite impressive. And that dual glazing here, or the lamination, is supposed to be standard actually, even from the base model, Volvo just told me. And these are also the Nordico seats, high-grade leatherette, also with the perforation. Different colors are available, and you also get some different seat options. We can soon also show what's in the cross-country model. This one here is then the perforation with seat cooling, so you have heating and cooling. There would also be a base Nordico leatherette without the seat cooling, but this one of course then covers everything. They still offer optional animal skin though. And then here you can make this lower area a little bit longer. It's good ergonomics of the seats, so it's really comfortable, and you have this typical living room atmosphere, Scandinavian living room. And we know, like, especially like in Denmark, Sweden and so on, like in all the Scandinavian countries, they really pay a lot of attention to interior design, and that's what's reflected here in the vehicle. And here to the glass roof with 189, 6 for 2, it's like this. To the sides, a little bit less, but you have enough headroom. fixed glass roof, always standard, soon more to that. But yeah, the first impression is comfortable, it's nice. I also draw some comparisons to the GLC EQ and to the BMW iX3 very soon, of course, that will be super crucial. So it's this, oh, interesting. Even the screen has like a, it's like curved a little bit. Let's take a detailed look at that. So welcome to your new Scandinavian living room. Here we are. Quick info to this glass roof. It's always fixed. You cannot open it. You do have this digital shade, as we have experienced a couple of times now. This does not change how hot it gets in the cabin. This is more a visual thing, actually. I'm not the biggest fan of it. I would rather go for closed roofs, or then one you can actually really open. But then again, roofs you can actually open for air also have their tricky moments when it comes to squeaking and if they're really like sealed and so on. So I'm more a fan of use a convertible or use a closed roof. That's at least what my mechanic next door always tells me. But back to the front of the interior here. It's not that something with your eyes is not okay or something. This is really curved, but to the outside. So usually everyone curves screens like this. And they curved screen like this, so like to the outside. And it might look a little bit odd at first, but it has a reason, because then both driver and passenger can better see what's going on. So like the access to the climate unit, for example, is then a little bit easier from each side. So you can actually understand how they integrate that way. So that's something new, 15-inch. And now you see they also use this horizontal format instead of the vertical one. Beautiful materials here also. For example, living room fabric on top where the airbag is. And here the matte wood, typical nice Volvo Scandinavian style. You can also hear it, how I feel it. I love that. Yeah, I think I would be directly sold on this color combination. Maybe a Thomas Blue or there's like a nice gray on the outside or something like that. Once again, more speakers from the Bowers & Wilkins sound system there in the front. And next to it, the digital instruments with 11-inch. And they are really wide in the front. That's why Volvo also argues that they don't need a head-up display. And we had something similar with the BMW iX3 with the panoramic vision, but they also optional still offer a head display. And I could live without one. I think it works. Some do want one, so that's what you could not have in this case. But as I said, real buttons. Back to the steering wheel, how you can control them. Also have some clicking sound. So you use them like here, the right, left, up, down, left side for the cruise control. Also the Gemini activation, for example. So Gemini is built in this vehicle, so you have a better natural voice understanding, like you would be talking to your smartphone. And on the right side, you control something in the digital instruments. I can also click that through, actually. So here you can have like a map view, for example, or more blank, or an assistant system view. So this is all then possible. Everything is actually covered. So here also the high-grade leatherette, really soft for your elbow. You cannot fold this up, but you slide this here outside. There we go. And then you can slide these one behind. Cup holders, some adaptive lips or not. Then Leah might fancy this, maybe like for her handbag, also with felt covering. And then we also have a shared glove box, because there's no glove box here. There's like a nice covering here and also here, left and right of the felt. So I don't see any high gloss black only on the screen, and black plastic nowhere, basically. So that's why we also have this joint glove box in the middle. Manual opening, there we go. This is a very new, interesting idea. And it's actually quite spacious here with another, segmentation there. Smartphone you can put on top there. It's also with ventilation, this inductive charging bit. And here, this one is when you want to use the two USB-C chargers. You can actually then put the cable here and still close it and put the cable on top. So that would be possible. Physical, yes, on the steering wheel. This is how you shift the gears. Drive, reverse, that's it. However, P on the side. Here also for the volume, this is still possible. And next song, previous song. But the climate unit is directly here. But it's actually better than in the previous versions, because now this one here, in comparison to like ES90, EX90, it's on the first level. First, like that's like easily accessible and also pretty large, so it's easy to do that actually. And here for the seat heating and for the seat ventilation, this also quicker, better accessible. This whole vehicle is on the new SPA3 platform with mega casting. That is more to the rear. They use one big aluminum block. You maybe know this giga casting, how Tesla calls it. So they use more like one piece, like 100 pieces becomes one piece for better stability, better cost efficiency, and also weight savings. Very interesting. And of course also new hardware and software here in the infotainment system. So it's actually quite likable. The left row here is kind of like adaptive, so to speak. So when you're parked, it's different from when you're driving. And in the lower part, you can also have some hotkey functions like here, intelligent speed assist. So like pressing here, that's it. So there you can deactivate the EU speed chime law pretty quickly. So here with the adaptive suspension, also when I go to performance mode, off-road mode, it will already change. Base suspension would not change with the driving modes. And the air suspension, once again, does change with the driving modes. I can also adjust the steering wheel from here, but I have to do it then here on the button at the steering wheel, so Tesla alike. On the one hand, you can say it's more complicated. On the other hand, it will be saved to your user account. And then when you enter the vehicle, you will automatically, be set to your according position. And of course, they have the Google Maps integration like this, also pretty quick, very responsive. And the good thing that the route recalculations for the charging stops and so on, this is also then automatically done. So you don't need your smartphone for it. However, you can still connect it if you like, because Apple CarPlay is also available. So that would be another choice you would have here. As for the concise range you have here, we talk about the charging stops and so on, here with the biggest battery, I have not driven this car yet, but what we know from the other competitors, what we know from standard average consumptions for the EVs and looking at the CD village and so on, I would at this moment calculate with when you drive like good motorway speeds, like not only 100 kilometers an hour, 60 miles an hour, but also like a little bit faster, like 120, 130 kilometers an hour, 70, 80 miles an hour, 500 kilometers, 300 miles, something like that. I always rather give like, rather negative estimations, because the official driving figures are always like exaggerating. Here, the W2LTP figure for this one here is more than 800 kilometers on the official scale. You can score that when you drive city only, but motorway, higher speeds will be something different. But we, of course, give you an update on that one very, very soon. Quickly again to the seats. I showed you the heating and the cooling here with the perforation. The cooling also comes through. It's a good material, feels nice, and it's also good in the ergonomics. If we now compare this interior to the main competitors, BMW iX3 and the Mercedes GLC EQ, everyone has a completely different interior philosophy. And I think that's a good thing, to give customers a choice, and that not all cars look actually the same. And I think all of these cars have their certain, unique selling points. As for the cockpit atmosphere, I like this Scandinavian wood bright atmosphere. There's also darker scheme available, yes. Some choices are there, but design-wise, I really love that. It's also pretty clean. With Mercedes, it's a little bit screen overload, I would say, and the iX3 is more futuristic with the panoramic vision and so on, and that the screen has a different form, but all have something. Seating comfort is definitely the best with the BMW. It's also nice here, but there I would say seating comfort, BMW iX3, Volvo EX60, and GLC EQ then on the last place. So BMW really the best in seating comfort, and also the animal-free materials are even softer with BMW if you compare it here with the Volvo, for example. But still, I'm applauding them. This whole interior here, it looks premium, basically luxury. And everything you see here in this spec is completely animal-free. Once again, the proof that if you wouldn't know it, no one could tell, because it's nice, it's soft, and you can be happy with it. And you also have the seat cooling and the heating and so on. I'm really looking forward to drive this one, but let's check out the rear seats here, because as you might remember, 10 centimeters or 4 inches is the wheelbase, longer than the XC60. And that should translate into more legroom, and that's fine. Look at that here, even when I'm driving as a tall passenger. And here, once again, look at that. The seats from the rear, everything is covered, and especially the German competitors. I mean, with the iX3, they've really increased like the interior build quality at BMW. But some of the other recent German cars, they rather went lower in the build quality. And here, I think Volvo picked up from their Chinese owner company, from Geely, and said like, hey, let's check out what's happening on the Chinese market. And they are selling vehicles there at not so high price points, but which are all the way like soft covered. You have no cheap stuff everywhere, and they really covered on with this scheme. Make no mistake, however, this vehicle here is built in Torslanda. This is like where we are at the moment here, near Gothenburg in Sweden. So this is a proprietary Swedish vehicle. Yes, of course, they have also suppliers from China, like everyone has, and then the batteries and so on. But this vehicle here is built here in Sweden and will also be built in Sweden for all the markets around. And also like the whole mega casting thing and so on, everything is done here. Then here, rear headroom is also fine, 189, 602, nice bright inside. Also here the rear doors are covered. So also you have the dual glazing, lamination at the side windows, that's fine. And then here also once again the logic with electric release and manual release. And then here you can also electrically move the seats. So yeah, I can adjust the angle then a little bit, make it more upright or make it a little bit more backward. So depending if you want more cargo space or how you want to sit here in the rear. But actually nice and comfortable. You see here the battery, because it's an SUV, also doesn't build too high. My feet are not too high actually, so it's a nice angle here, good comfort. Seat heating for the rear seats, and then another climate unit. There we go. Touch only, yeah. And here, this one, the lower part, you could actually remove this part to put it out. Yeah, and two USB-C chargers. And then we also can put down this one. Isofix on the outside, by the way, each is nicely covered here. Look at that, it's like BMW does it now, meanwhile. There we go. And then putting down this, it's the armrest, really wide, and you can also fold it open here for these adaptive lips then, that, you know, not so many drinks are being spilled. So good in comfort, and yeah, looks everything nice from like how everything is built and so on. You see that they invested a lot of time and effort in doing this vehicle, definitely. But does it also have a proper trunk space? So here we go, 520 liters up till here, and 630 it would be up till here. This is like the standard cover, like this. Rails on the outside. This one also fits underneath still as a trolley. And then we have here a standard length of about 1 meter or 40 inches and also width of a little bit more than 1 meter or 40 inches. So that's actually nice. And then here we have 70 centimeters or 27.5 inches. Interesting thing is here in the lower part, it's like a split opening of the lower bottom. So like this and this, for example. Then this one also fits more than just a cable. And the reason for that is you could, for example, have this one like that and then have a dog box here. At the same time, you can access this lower part or maybe put a plant here when you go to IKEA or something like that. Not that I would think of a certain camera woman who would do that. So it's actually a nice idea. You cannot completely remove it. You can just put it like this and then here, put it up like that. That's it basically. You cannot put this whole thing out, but I think we're fine with it. Here you can see, it's also interesting, we can remove this top cover here. There we go, and then we can store it underneath. That's actually a practical thing. There we go. You can even enjoy more of that trunk. By the way, the total height, this might be also something like this. Here, I can show you the total height when you really want to use this plant position. And this is more like 42 inches or 1.5 meters. Also interesting to know that. Now, back to the other functions. There we go, because we have the electric folding, or let's say electric release. Like this, and then they orchestrated, they fold down smoothly. Have to go around to push that down. So there we go. And then the total length here is it's like 71 inches, 1.80 meters. So overall, I think, there we go, well usable. So, what do you think? And then towing is 2 tons or 2.4 tons for the all-wheel drive models. Oh yeah, Via is getting ready to show that adaptive towing hook. There we go. I know there's always a big discussion when people see this function. Sometimes we did like small like reels or shorts with this function, and people were actually suggesting what they see in this function. I'm not telling anything more about that now. So and there's also a 12-volt power supply here in the rear trunk. By the way, if you have the all-wheel drive model, the front electric motor can also be decoupled for better efficiency. That's also interesting. And if you go to the off-road driving mode, the opposite is happening, then it's like 50-50 distribution, rear and front, that you have better performance, better traction than and grip in off-road driving. And of course, there is still the thing with the prices of this vehicle. And this is where it's of course getting very, very interesting also if you consider the competitors. Because here we start, German price I have already here in my list, 63,000 euros with the smallest battery, rear-wheel drive. Then you add some 3,000 euros for the mid-level battery. That's actually best in price performance if you ask me. But then for the best range, add 6,000 euros more for the biggest battery, the 112 kilowatt hour battery. And if you then go for the biggest battery with the all-wheel drive, then automatic connected, and the Ultra, the highest spec, as you see the vehicle here right now, 79,000 euros. And that is very well in that range of the BMW iX3. Mercedes GLC EQ might be a little bit more expensive. It always depends a little bit on the trim. But here already a lot of stuff is included. Yeah, and they offer already these 3 battery steps depending on your individual needs. My experience is that it's usually better to go for the bigger battery, especially, I mean, this is a vehicle where the use case is, this is your main vehicle. You have this car, right, for all the driving and for city, but also for long haul. So I would rather tend towards the bigger battery. If you go for the cross-country version, that adds about 3,000 euros extra, but you also already include the air suspension right there. That's why we're going to check out the cross-country right now. And now the cross-country model of the EX60 in frost green. Do you see green there? I'm not so sure, but I think it looks still quite cool, this color, doesn't it? And the differences now with the cross-country model is here. You have this, this aluminum cladding here in the lower part. This is pretty special, definitely. And then you have the cross-country lettering right here. Also then the different wheel arches has wider wheel arches. You can already see it right here. And then the classic plastic cladding here. Also here, this, by the way, that they made this part here a little bit longer. This even helped with the aerodynamic efficiency. It's very interesting, right? Sometimes it's about the small parts here, definitely. And it's not only that the wheel arches are wider, the track of the car is also wider indeed. Front and rear 21-inch wheels we have here in black. And there's also like is finito. You know, you don't get the 22-inch wheels here on this one. 20-inch would be the standard. These here are also available in the bright scheme, so you don't have to go for black wheels. And then in the rear, once again, more unique in the lower bumper with the big cross-country embossed right there. And then the silver contrast in the lower part, so you get the unique styling. Also here, for example, in the top part, there again, you have the cross-country badging. And now to the technology side. So this one exclusively gets the air suspension. And what does it mean as for the ride height? So the standard ride height is 2 centimeters higher than. However, if you drive quicker than 60 kilometers an hour, it goes down to the similar level. And if you drive even faster then, it even can go more down than the standard version. And that's why the W2LTP figure, like the driving cycle range, is not so much different because it gains again then with the air suspension, with adjusting the height. And if you go to the off-road mode, having like uneven terrain and so on, then it can go even 2 centimeters higher. So then in the off-road mode, you are at 4 centimeters higher than the standard version for the best ground clearance. So this one is then, yeah, if you have some more maybe soft off-road situations and so on. It will only be available with the all-wheel drive, so starting then with the P10. And we expect also then the P12 model later on in here for the cross-country model. The interior will be even more exciting because they also have done something very unique there. And this is maybe, yeah, also one of my highlights here for today, because then here on the inside, this is first of all like a dark scheme, so contrast to the brighter we had earlier. This one, however, then here in the navy tone, that's not all in black, also with the high-grade leather red once again. This is then also the only black plastic part, but this one, once again, also soft when you touch it. Then the steering wheel in all black, so no two-tone scheme. Also matte wood, but then once again in the navy color scheme, really beautiful. And the floor mats with cross-country badging. And finally the seats, they are the highlight here. Fabric on the inside, on this part, then some leather on the outside. This, by the way, also with 75% recycling share, front part leather red again, and also here the top head restraint. They look also pretty cool. Let's see, how does it compare in the comfort? They're actually pretty good as well. So, I mean, there's even seat ventilation available here for the fabric seats, it seems. That's actually a cool thing. Maybe this is the most desired spec then here. I mean, you get the air suspension on the exterior, you get a more unique exterior. It can go down in fast driving, it can go up in off-road driving, and ventilated fabric seats here. I mean, some don't like fabric seats, but I have to say they are very I have the feeling they're actually, I mean, the same base ergonomics, but I have the feeling they're a little bit more comfortable. Take a closer look here at the rest of the cockpit. Gotta say, I mean, I like bright interiors, but this one also has something special. And as I said, you can also get the high-grade leather red, perforation, ventilation, but that one then in a dark scheme, like in black, for example. So different stuff is available. You can check out the configurator in there. What I realized, by the way, here is that the steering wheel itself from the form is very small. Not sure if you can see it on camera, but it's actually tiny for such a large vehicle already. So that's remarkable. Gotta find out how that one then reacts in driving. And I really like this navy scheme also here with the dark blue, and also then the fabric here, or this felt in the lower part is then here in black, for example. And once again, this middle console. For filming here, it doesn't look maybe that attractive because in the studio, you cannot get so much light then in here on the interior. But I think when we can drive this vehicle here for you very soon, then we can maybe give you another impression. You can also see it in daylight and so on. But I think both interior schemes are pretty attractive. What do you think? And as I said, 3,000 euros extra on top for the cross-country version. But yeah, therefore you also get the air suspension. Might be the most desirable version. What do you think? Which one would you go for? Standard EX60, which battery would you pick, or the cross-country version? Tell me in the comments then which one would be your desired one. And of course, now it's time, if you haven't done so far, to compare this one here to the BMW iX3 and the GLC EQ by Mercedes.